She was never meant to be a target, but the darkness found her first. And when it learned that hurting her was the fastest way to break him, the Alpha made one choice: stand between her and the night, or lose the one woman who steadied his soul. He chose her. The forest did not feel wrong at first. It was quiet, yes, but not unnaturally so. The wind still moved through the upper branches, sifting needles and leaves in a low, restless murmur. Snowmelt traced shallow paths through the earth, clear and cold. The world breathed as it always had. That was why Susan didn't sense the danger until it was already too close. She knelt near the stream, sleeves rolled, dark hair bound low at her nape. Her fingers moved through the water with practiced ease as she rinsed soil from gathered roots, selecting only the unbruised ones. This was her routine. Dawn walks, quiet work. Solitude earned through years of proving she was neither reckless nor weak. The packlands were safest at this hour. And yet, her spine tightened. Not fear, awareness. The feeling came from behind her, just beyond the tree line, an absence where something should have been. Birds still called, the stream still flowed, but the forest's attention had shifted, like a held breath. Susan straightened slowly, one hand drifting to the knife at her thigh. Not in panic, not even fully in defense. Simply acknowledgement. "I know," she said quietly, voice carrying just enough to break the stillness. "If you're there, you're already seen." Silence answered her. Then the pressure changed. Not movement, not sound, but intention. The air cooled sharply, as if night had rushed forward all at once. Susan turned, finally, scanning the trees with narrowed focus. Shadows lay deeper between the trunks now, thicker, wrong. Her heartbeat steadied, not quickened. Fear wastes time. She began to back up toward the trail. That was when the dark moved. It did not emerge as a body, not at first. It bled into shape, edges of shadow tearing loose from the forest itself, sliding across bark and snow. The temperature dropped another degree, breath frosting as she exhaled. Susan felt it then, not as hunger, but as interest. It surged. She pivoted and ran. Boots struck earth hard and fast, lungs drawing cold air in measured pulls. She did not scream, did not look back. She followed the path she knew by memory alone, cutting left where the birch narrowed, vaulting a fallen trunk without breaking stride. Something brushed past her shoulder. Pain flared, sharp, searing. She gasped as heat bloomed beneath her sleeve, fabric tearing, not deep, not mortal, deliberate. The thing did not want her dead. It wanted her afraid. She stumbled once near the ridge, momentum breaking. The forest fell away sharply ahead, revealing open ground, too exposed, too far from cover. Wrong choice. The darkness coiled again, gathering itself behind her, thicker now, heavier. Then it stopped, not gradually, not hesitantly, as if something immovable had stepped into its path. The pressure vanished so abruptly it left Susan reeling. She spun, breath ragged, knife raised. A figure stood between her and the trees, tall, broad, absolute. He had not come running. He had arrived. The Alpha's presence hit like a wall of heat against the cold. The shadows recoiled visibly, dragging back toward the forest's edge, snarling soundlessly before dissolving into nothing at all. The man did not pursue it, did not even watch it leave. His attention locked solely on her. Susan's instincts flared, not fear, but recognition of power, the kind that did not posture, did not explain itself. He stood with his body angled just enough to shield her, one arm slightly behind him, as though already guarding something precious. Her. "You're hurt," he said. Not a question. His voice was low, controlled, edged with something colder than anger. "I've been worse," she replied, steadying herself. Dark eyes flicked to her torn sleeve, then back to her face, taking inventory, measuring. You shouldn't have been alone. I'm allowed to be, Susan said calmly. This land is mine as much as anyone's. His jaw tightened, barely. That wasn't pack-born. I know. Something shifted then, not in him, but between them. A mutual recognition that neither of them was foolish. Neither of them spoke without weighing consequence. He stepped closer, not abruptly, not invading, but enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him, the grounding pull of his presence pressing back against the lingering cold in her bones. The forest did not close in again. It watched. "What's your name?" he asked. "Susan." A beat. "You gather alone at dawn often. You've noticed." "Yes." No apology, no explanation, just fact. She studied him openly now. The marks of command were written in small things, how the air seemed to align around him, how even the silence deferred. His cloak bore the insignia of the High Guard, but the way he wore it, casual, unornamented, marked him as more than a sentry. "You're not from my pack," she said. "I am not." "Then why are you here?" Another pause, this one deliberate. "Because something crossed into our territory last night," he said, and it didn't stop. His gaze sharpened, not predatory, protective. "And because it chose you." Cold settled differently now, not fear, but understanding. "That wasn't an accident," Susan said quietly. "No." "What was it?" He did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice dropped lower, meant only for her. "A testing shadow," he said. "It doesn't hunt without reason. It doesn't bruise without intention." Her fingers curled at her side. "And the intention?" His eyes held hers without wavering. To draw someone out. Susan felt it then. The terrible, undeniable truth settling into her chest, not as panic, but as weight. Someone had placed a mark on the dark, and whatever it served, wanted him to come running. She lifted her chin. "Then I assume this is where you tell me I'll be confined to the inner halls." "No." The word fell with quiet finality. She blinked, surprised despite herself. "I'll walk you back," he said instead, "and until this is finished, you will not be alone." "That sounds like confinement." "That," he said, meeting her gaze evenly, "is protection." The forest shifted again, not threatening this time, watching, because something ancient had taken note of her, and something far more dangerous had stepped into its way. The fortress gates closed behind them with a sound like judgment. Stone met stone, iron slid into place. The world outside, forest, shadow, and unanswered questions, was sealed away. But Susan did not feel safer, not entirely, because the danger had followed her inside, not as a creature, as a presence. She felt it in the way sentries straightened as the Alpha passed, in the subtle shift of attention that tracked his movement without conscious effort. This was not respect born of fear, it was recognition, the instinct to stand aside when something decisive moved through shared space. He walked at her pace, not a step ahead, not behind, beside her. "I can manage stairs on my own," she said, breaking the silence as they ascended the inner ramp. "I know. You don't have to shadow me this closely." "I do." Not disagreement, declaration. She huffed quietly but did not press further. He already knew that tone, she could tell. Knew when she was testing a boundary and when she would not cross it. They reached the infirmary wing. Light spilled warm and steady from the narrow windows, casting long amber stripes across the stone floor. The healer on duty looked up once, took in the Alpha's expression, and said nothing. Susan shrugged out of her cloak without prompting. The Alpha's attention locked on her torn sleeve again. "Sit," he said. She did. The healer tended the shallow wound with brisk efficiency, murmuring that it would scar faintly, if at all. Susan barely registered it. Her focus had narrowed elsewhere. She was aware of him standing too close behind her chair. Not touching, not hovering, present. "The shadow won't strike again so soon," he said as the healer worked. It was testing reactions, mapping response. And my reaction was running. Your reaction was surviving, he corrected. She glanced up at him. His gaze was already on her, steady and unreadable. You knew where to find me, she said. That path isn't patrolled. No. How? A beat. I've been watching the borders for weeks. That's not an answer. Another pause, longer this time. Because you are not the first it has marked, he said finally. Only the closest. Susan's breath caught before she could stop it. How many? 3, he said. None harmed, all unsettled, all near places you frequent. Understanding slid into place, cold and sharp. It's hurting, she murmured. Pressuring, waiting. Yes. For what? For me to make a mistake. The healer finished and stepped away. The Alpha moved immediately, not to crowd, but to assume position, standing between Susan and the open doorway without seeming to try. You'll tell the council? She asked. They already know. And they decided what? That I am assigned to you. Not as a guard, not as an escort. To her. Susan exhaled slowly. I don't want a jailer. You won't get one. I don't need to be watched every moment. You won't be. Then what exactly does assigned mean? His jaw tightened, not frustration. Control. It means, he said evenly, that wherever this darkness reaches toward you, it will pass through me first. The words settled heavily between them. She stood, testing her balance. The Alpha immediately shifted, not closer, but ready, prepared to catch her without touching unless necessary. She did not miss it. I won't hide behind you, she said quietly. You won't need to. That's not what I said. His gaze dropped briefly to her bandaged arm, then lifted again to her eyes. And I won't let you draw its attention alone. A challenge hung there, not spoken, not postured, understood. They walked again through inner corridors, quieter now, deeper into the heart of the stronghold. Torchlight flickered against stone. The fortress felt old here, layers of history embedded in its walls. You'll remain in the east wing, he said, closer to guarded passageways, not confined, informed. You say that like it's a compromise. It is. For whom? For both of us. She stopped walking. He halted instantly, turning to face her. The space between them tightened, awareness sharpening to something almost physical. You're not supposed to feel this involved, she said. His brow furrowed slightly. This? This. She gestured between them. The way you look at me like I'm already within reach of something. Danger flickered then, not threat. Honesty. You're under my protection, he said carefully. I don't allow harm to reach what I guard. That's possession. No, he said, low and firm. That is responsibility. And emotion? Forbidden. They both knew it. His silence stretched. Emotion is irrelevant, he said at last. It complicates judgment. And proximity. That is unavoidable. Her pulse ticked faster, not from fear, from restraint. I won't be weak just because someone is watching, she said. I would never mistake vigilance for weakness. The words landed deeper than they should have. What is your name? She asked softly. He looked at her for a moment and then said, Torin. He turned then, breaking the moment deliberately. I'll have a guard posted outside the wing, he added, not inside. She nodded once, acknowledging the respect in that choice. As they parted at the corridor's bend, Susan felt it again, the sense of something watching from beyond the walls, waiting. Because the darkness had learned something important. It had found leverage, and the Alpha assigned to protect her already stood too close to the line that duty drew. The first dream was hers. Susan woke with her breath locked in her chest, fingers curled hard enough to ache, the afterimage of cold still slick against her skin. The room was dark, lit only by the thin seam of moonlight cutting across the floor. Nothing moved. Nothing touched her. And yet she could still feel the echo of it, pressure without weight, a presence bending close, but never quite crossing into form. She sat up slowly, grounding herself in small certainties. Stone beneath her feet, wool at her shoulders, the steady rhythm of her own breathing. Outside the door, a guard shifted. Not him. She knew the difference. By morning, the dreams had spread. Not to others yet, but to the fortress itself. Conversations softened, sentries reported cold spots near the outer walls. Torches dimmed too quickly. Wolves refused to settle, circling restlessly as if listening for something only they could hear. And through it all, the Alpha remained at her side, not constantly, not suffocatingly, but always close enough that she could feel when he entered a room without turning her head. "It's escalating," she said as they stood on the eastern parapet, overlooking the forest below. Morning light painted frost silver across the treetops. "Yes." "Faster than you expected." "Yes." She glanced at him. "That didn't alarm you." It confirmed something. "What?" His eyes followed the line of trees as though searching for a scar only he could see. "That it isn't bound to place anymore." She stilled. "It's following intention. It's following me." The words dropped quietly between them. She turned fully then. "You didn't tell me that part." "No." "Why?" "Because I needed to see if it would choose you again." Anger flared, brief, sharp, controlled. "That was not your risk to take." "No," he agreed calmly. "It was mine." She stepped closer despite herself, voice low. "I am not bait." "Then don't put yourself where it can corner you without me." His gaze snapped to hers, something dark and dangerous flickering there before he locked it down again. "That thing doesn't want you dead," he said. "It wants you afraid, unsettled, unmade. And you think knowing it's using me makes that better? I think knowing the truth keeps you alive." The wind cut between them, sudden and cold. That night, the darkness came closer than it ever had. Not to her chamber, to Torrens. Susan was awake when the wards flared, low discriminatory hum rippling through the stone like a held breath. She was already on her feet, knife in hand, before the bells rang. Doors slammed open down the hall. She ran, not blindly, not recklessly. She followed instinct sharpened by fear for something she did not want to name. His door stood open. Cold poured from within, unnatural and thick, the air warped as if bent around absence. Shadows clung to the corners of the chamber like rot, trembling with restrained force. And at the center, he stood alone, not struggling, not wounded, holding the darkness at bay through sheer will. The thing had shape now, rough, half-formed, pulled together from blackened edges and fragments of remembered pain. It did not strike him directly. It circled, whispered. Susan heard it then, not with her ears, with her bones. "Break him," it urged softly, "and she will follow." Her breath hitched, because it was right. He staggered once, barely perceptible, jaw tightening as the pressure mounted. The darkness pressed inward, not to kill him, to wear him down. She stepped forward without hesitation. "No," he said sharply, sensing her before he saw her. "Do not come closer. I won't watch you carry this alone. This is not your—" "It became my place the moment it chose me," she snapped, voice steady despite the cold seeping into her limbs. The shadow reacted instantly. It surged toward her. Torren moved faster than she thought possible. One moment the space between them was charged and empty. The next, his body was in front of hers, arms braced wide, stance anchored as if rooted to the stone itself. The darkness struck him full force. He grunted, teeth gritting, shoulders bowing under the impact. Frost crept along the floor at his feet. Cracks spidered through the stone. Susan pressed close behind him without touching, breath brushing his shoulder, grounding him. "I'm here," she said quietly. "I'm not afraid." He shook his head once. "You don't understand." "Then don't explain," she murmured. "Just stand." Her calm cut through the assault sharper than any blade. The darkness recoiled, hissing in frustration. "She steadies you," it whispered, retreating toward the shadows. "She weakens you." His voice dropped, fierce and final. "She anchors me." The thing screamed, not in sound, but in pressure, and withdrew, dissolving into nothingness. The chamber warmed slowly. Silence rushed back in. He lowered his arms, but did not turn. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, "You should not have come," he said hoarsely. "I will never apologize for standing," she replied. He turned then, face taut with restraint, something dangerous flickering beneath. "It will use you again. Then stop pretending this is only your fight. And when it takes what it wants from me?" His voice dropped lower. "When it decides hurting you, breaks me faster?" Her chin lifted. "Then you trust me to endure." The air between them tightened, charged with more than aftermath. "You don't know what you're asking. I know exactly what I'm offering." For a breath, just one, it felt as though he might reach for her, not in hunger, in need. Instead, he stepped back, forcing distance like a wound closed too fast. "This cannot continue," he said roughly. "Not like this." "Because you're losing control?" "Because," he said, meeting her gaze with brutal honesty, "I would choose you over duty." The admission landed heavy and irreversible. Outside, something ancient shifted, alerted not by fear, but by devotion forming in the dark. The council chamber was lit for judgment. Torches burned high along the stone ribs of the ceiling, flames steady and untroubled, betraying nothing of the unease tightening the room. Elders stood in a semicircle, their expressions grave, their attention fixed on the Alpha at the chamber's center. Susan stood one step behind him, not summoned, not hidden. There, because he had placed her there. "The entity is no longer probing," the eldest said. "It is responding." "To you," another added quietly. The Alpha inclined his head once, acceptance, not submission. "It has learned," he said evenly, "that she stabilizes me." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. "That makes her a liability," one elder said, "and therefore a lever." Susan felt the judgment settle on her skin like cold rain. She did not flinch. Torrin did. Barely, but enough. "She is not a lever," he said. "She is the reason it cannot breach the inner wards." Silence followed. Dangerous silence. "You've altered protocol," the eldest said carefully. "You were assigned protection, not attachment." His gaze did not leave the elders. "Correct. And yet—" "I will hear the consequence," he interrupted, voice calm and final. "But I will not remove her from my side." The room stilled. "You would place personal judgment above duty?" another demanded. He turned then, not toward the council, toward her. For the briefest moment, the restraint cracked, just enough for her to see the truth beneath. "I would place survival above tradition," he said, "and I will not apologize for choosing what stands." The darkness answered that choice immediately. The wards screamed, not audibly, but violently. The chamber plunged into shadow as flames guttered low, frost racing across stone as if the walls themselves recoiled. The temperature dropped, air thickened. This time it did not test. It arrived. The shadow tore through the chamber floor, form surging upward in a violent rupture of blackened force. Elders staggered back, guards braced, and still. Its focus locked only on him, and through him, her. Choose, it pressed, voice everywhere and nowhere, or lose her. The Alpha stepped forward without hesitation. "Stay behind me," he said low. Susan shook her head once. "I stand with you." The darkness recoiled, not in fear, in fury. It struck. He caught it full force, arms wide, stance anchored as if forged into the stone itself. Power thundered through him, raw and controlled, but even that was not enough. Not alone. Susan placed her hand against his back, not to shield, to steady. Her breath matched his. Her calm fed him. "I'm here," she said softly. "You don't have to fracture for me." His voice broke loose then, not loud. Honest. "I would break the world before I let it take you." The darkness screamed. It lunged again, and this time he did not just block it, he advanced. Torrin stepped into it, power flaring outward, not rage, not dominance, resolve. The wards ignited in response, flooding the chamber with light. The shadow convulsed, form unraveling under pressure it could not bend. "You are bound," it shrieked, "by oath, by law, by restraint." He did not slow. "I am bound," he said, voice like steel drawn from fire, but not broken. With one final step, he drove the darkness back through the fracture it had torn, sealing it shut with force that rattled the chamber itself. Silence followed, deep, final. The torches flared back to life. He turned at once, not to the council, to her. Hands still shaking faintly from exertion, he reached out, then stopped himself, control slamming back into place. She closed the distance herself. "You chose," she said quietly. "Yes." "And duty?" "I redefined it." Their foreheads hovered inches apart. Heat gathered in the space between them, not urgency. Gravity. "You were never my weakness," he murmured. "You were the proof that I could stand without becoming stone." She lifted her hand, resting it lightly against his chest. His heartbeat thundered beneath her palm, alive, unyielding. "And you," she said, "were always standing between me and the dark. I simply stopped pretending I could do this without you." Later, when the fortress had settled and the night no longer pressed its weight against the walls, they stood together on the parapet. No guards close enough to listen, no shadows left to challenge. Torrin leaned an arm against the stone beside her, not touching, but close. A question held in the restraint. She answered it by turning toward him. He bent, slow and deliberate, giving her time to withdraw. She didn't. Their kiss was not hunger. It was alignment. A meeting point between two forces that had chosen each other not out of need, but out of trust. When they parted, his forehead rested against hers. "I will protect you," he said quietly. "Not because I was told to." She smiled, soft and certain. "I know." And beyond the walls, the forest breathed again, not in warning this time, but in relief.